Spec Ops: The Line finally has a contender for the title of best game at disproving how unfun war can be, and ironically, it's the series Spec Ops was the antithesis of. After Black Ops 6, I thought I was out of things to say about COD. Then Activision released a new one and I finally reached my conclusion. I'd rather amputate my good masturbation hand than play more of it. I was never really on Team Hate It because it's popular. I was on Team It's a competent protein paste for the masses. A sloppy 8-hour shooter that politely shoved you toward the multiplayer once you were finished with a campaign, and then towards a GameStop for a trade-in once a new COD released. But with Black Ops 7, COD didn't just waste my time, it monetized it. I'm a single-player purist. I'd rather there be no single player at all as opposed to a campaign that's treated like a bug they didn't finish patching out. Black Ops 7 appears to be the result of the multiplayer conducting a hostile takeover of the single player. The main menu is a depressing player lobby where you don't start a campaign, you queue for it by selecting an empty waiting room, which only highlights that you have no twins or bros or whatever. The game even punishes solo play preference by deleting your squad mates' character models. You are now officially clinically insane, hearing the voices of companions that only appear during cutscenes while fighting swarms of bullet sponge enemies that require a coordinated 4-man fire team to dent, which ties into the plot better than I think the devs intended, since the characters and setting are mostly illusory. This isn't a military thriller. It's a desperate justification to explain why so much of it was built off multiplayer modes whose content has drifted toward PvE. Why are there monsters and zombies everywhere? Hallucination gas. But these hallucinations don't just make you see fantasy creatures. It also, and I swear to God, makes you hallucinate that you're playing on a battle royale map for half the game.
My name is Raul Menendez, and as you can see, I am alive and well.
Menendez died in 2025, and a posthumously released video causes billions of followers worldwide to riot, even burning down the White House. Now, 10 years later, Menendez drops a new video where he claims, "Psych, I'm not dead. Time for round 2. Sorry I wasn't around for 10 years, I had a real bad Wi-Fi signal." If I were one of Menendez's devoted followers who spent 10 years in a supermax prison for burning down a national monument in his name, well, I'd be livid. You martyred yourself in a prison gruel for a decade, and his big comeback plan is to ask you to do it again.
All right, we are joined by Ms. Emma Kagan, CEO of the Guild, which is a world leader in innovation and security.
Only private military contractors, Americans, and women can be Call of Duty villains nowadays, and Kagan is all three.
Our forensic analysis uncovered tags embedded in the stream that match those used by Cortis DA. It does appear to be authentic.
Oh shit, they use the same tags in the livestream that Menendez used? Ironclad argument there. Here's the tags on my Twitch stream that only I and no one else can use. By the way, I stream 5 days a week on Twitch, YouTube, and now Kick, so be sure to follow me on one of them and watch me live send games like this one, because social media websites don't respect notification settings anymore. I'm half tempted to create a mailing list.
And governments? I mean, they've shown they don't know how to prevent, respond, or even recover from such events.
And that's where the Guild can help.
That's right, Chris. We're gonna do everything in our power to stop this.
How long ago did Menendez's video drop, and the world is still spinning just fine? Where are the riots, the renewed fervor? We're told his movement is a sleeping giant, but the only person it's inspiring is a CEO selling your company's products, because a single PMC company has more defensive capabilities than NATO apparently. We have a villain whose return inspires no one, a corporation profiting, and a global conflict that only 6 people seem to actually fight in.
Who are they? JSOC.
How did you ID the JSOC team when you only have a satellite view of their backs? It could be anyone, and if these guys are carrying as much trauma as the Guild's assessment of them suggests, they should be in therapy instead of saving the world. This conversation about a top-secret Black Ops operation could have taken place in a secure office. Instead, you're using the headstones of actual sacrifices at Arlington as a cheap narrative prop to make your nonsense about hallucination gas and zombies feel important.
What are you feeling?
Well, you know I killed him.
Of course I do. No one doubts that.
Menendez didn't just die off camera in 2025. He was killed on screen. In a past game, there was a body. When his new video dropped, did anyone in the CIA say, "Don't we have his skull in an evidence locker at Quantico?" Do they, in the year 2035, even briefly utter the word deepfake? Your grandma on this timeline could probably generate a flawless Taylor Swift announces martial law video on her smart fridge, which says to me the message is clear. Narrative is an obstacle. The only truth is the objective marker, and the only proof you'll ever need is the health bar above the guy you're shooting, says Menendez.
Called arms from the grave. His followers. They practically burned the world down.
Killing the man is a hell of a lot easier than killing the idea.
You don't get a billion people ready to burn civilization to the ground because a guy on TV has a cool scar and a raspy voice. That kind of fan base requires a truly spectacular amount of systemic failure. A world so fundamentally unfair that lighting a match seems rational. But does Black Ops 7 have the balls to even once glance at its own political premise? Of course not. The game will happily use global despair as a set dressing for its explosions, while doing nothing to address why the citizens are mad enough to follow a terrorist into hell.
No time for distraction or personal grievances. If you feel doubt creeping in, turn to your team. Let them ground you. Trust them.
I would turn to my team, but the game didn't delete them once the cutscene ends.
Team vitals are good. 50. Your blood pressure's up. Take a breath.
Got an itch on my left ass cheek too, you feel that, Commander?
They gave the team a brain implant that allows for perfect wordless coordination, and then they proceed to never shut the hell up and verbally update each other about their situation even though they're supposed to be able to see through each other's POV, something that only ever seems to come up when they're tripping balls on bioweapons. So far, the guild has done nothing wrong. There's no proof they're behind anything, but that doesn't stop the team from killing the guards patrolling guild property. Maybe don't rappel down into the gas cloud you just created when none of you are wearing gas masks. That stuff knocked out the guild soldiers and they had more face protection than anyone on the team. What was a series about choke points and flanking has devolved into standing in the open while shooting waves of enemies who also stand in the open and take full magazines to chip away at their health bars. This is the result of making the game 4-player co-op. You can't really have stop and pop shooting because you'd pop all enemies so quick with 4 people you'd breeze through it in an hour. So now, no matter what gun you use, you do chip damage on their health bars because multiple players need to be able to shoot the same enemy and feel like they contributed. And playing by yourself makes it even more of a slog since you have to do the damage of 4 humans by yourself. If your technology is so advanced that you have plasma fields that stop humans from passing through them, don't place the power source directly across from it so the person can just shoot it out.
A necessary first step.
What? I thought you would enjoy a familiar face. How about now, David Mason?
You realize they have radios and video equipment to report back what they learn here, right? The entire world is now going to know you're behind this. The game is just too stupid to point that out. I hate to harp on the gas mask again so soon, but when it also would have saved you from this, I can't help but feel justified. Since Black Ops 7 is intended to be played with other people, it can't have every player experiencing a different hallucination. That would be too interesting and cost money. Through brain chips, your lead operative's shared psychotic break has perfect spatial consistency with a playable environment and with each other. You're essentially beta testing hallucination. The enemy is located on a floating island, Sergeant. Excellent. That's precisely where the target is located, soldier. Proceed to your objective marker that is thankfully also not an hallucination. I tried to pay attention to the plot, but COD has gotten so wrapped up in its own lore that half the game is about reliving Black Ops' greatest hits in between dropping you into this season's Battle Royale map. I have to wonder just what is going on in reality with them, because they're spraying ammo everywhere and playing make-believe that they're calling in giant machete airstrikes on Menendez. It doesn't make a bit of sense that the biological weapon turns on and off for the team at pivotal moments. Why would this weapon of mass destruction care if you dealt with some mental hangups enough to release its hold over you? Great job, heroes. You released a biological weapon into the environment with a bomb you set off to escape from the testing lab, killing all the civilians in Avalon, but for some reason failing to affect the guild soldiers, and they were affected by the gas inside the lab and will be infected at other points, but not within the general Battle Royale environment for some reason. Somehow the team managed to find their way outside during that hallucination. Sadly, they stumbled into a Battle Royale map. The basic flow of the game is to spit you out into it after every hallucination level, which are primarily made up of old Call of Duty maps. How does a series that makes this much money become so goddamn cheap?
What next, sir?
I want you to move into Avalon, investigate that toxin, and find out what the guild's plans are. They'll be looking for you, too.
All 4 of you are tripping like a desert mystic on peyote after exposure to an unknown chemical or biological weapon. Call in a different team to take over and get yourself an easy Purple Heart. Won't you guys at least consider wearing gas masks now that your mission is to head into a murder gas contaminated area where you might be exposed to it further? You have no idea the long-term effects it might have on you. Karma sure as hell is wearing proper protection for this mission.
So far, we haven't identified the gas or any potential treatments. Civilians in Avalon weren't as lucky as you guys.
Somehow we survived it, even at ground zero.
Look, our bad. We blew up the building and got all the civilians killed. Let's move on.
I don't think Kagan was expecting that. Maybe our insider has answers.
He went dark just after you arrived.
I don't know what else this guild insider has shared with them, but I feel like the gas should have been his priority. What was his original secret communique that got them to investigate Avalon in the first place? Hey, come check this shit out. You won't believe it. The insider didn't even tell them that the Menendez video was a deepfake, so I question how he would know anything about the gas.
In the meantime, I located a nearby supply drop with mobility gear. That'll help.
Download complete. Wingsuit operational asset acquired.
How did I just get a wingsuit? The team arrived by flying in on those. I should have had that from the beginning.
Everybody form up.
Whoa. A second ago we were in Avalon, man. Where's the informant? None of this can be real.
Woods needs us.
David Woods is dead.
We're going after Woods. End of discussion.
Take this man off this mission right now. He's chasing a dead hallucination of Woods instead of remaining with his objective. The insider they need, who they just found barely alive in a shipping container.
Woods told me this is how my father found him in Angola. So where is he?
Look, man, we still don't know dick about what's happening to us.
Menendez, now Woods. This toxin's drawing on your memories, Commander.
You gotta get your head on straight, bro.
You know this isn't reality, your team knows it, and yet you treat it like you're going to save Woods' life from a situation he already survived.
I can't help you, David. I can't help you. Save yourself!
The drug level is something you can only do as many times as the name describes. One level. Any more than that and you're better served making a different genre of game. Drugs don't give you as much carte blanche to do whatever you want as you think they do, especially transforming fan-favorite Black Ops character Frank Woods into a giant plant monster to fight. Uncanny Valley is an inherited trait humans developed to keep them away from anything that looked human but no longer was or never was, namely corpses, which might explain everyone's revulsion of Black Ops 7, not just because it's dead, but due to the constant back and forth between the established military themes and real-world groundedness of the series being at odds with the content of this game. It's a skinwalker wearing the identity of COD, but forgetting to call you racial slurs while doing it to seal the mimicry.
You got her. You gotta forgive yourself. It's good advice, kid. You first.
They're really fortunate the bioweapon in their system responds to personal growth and lets them go.
Bioweapon. It's called the Cradle.
Not pictured here was the Guild insider screaming at them to stop shooting at him when they thought he was a giant plant.
We've had another breakthrough thanks to Karma's work on that hard drive you acquired. Menendez is a Guild deepfake. He's dead, David. You can rest easy.
You needed to analyze the video to prove that. You had Menendez's body 10 years ago. This is something any conspiracy theorist with a corkboard could piece together in minutes. Wild how the entire drive wasn't encrypted and vital intelligence on the Menendez deepfake was left unsecured. Also, you don't use a quantum computer to make a deepfake. The use case of quantum computers is very niche.
The decryption key is so complex, it'll require a quantum computer to unscramble. You haven't seen one, have you?
Just one, but it's a pile of scrap now. Maybe the Guild has another.
Is this game seriously going to look us dead in the eyes and tell us that the United States, nor any of its allies, have a quantum computer of their own and instead have to track down and use one of the Guild's? And they're basically guessing that the Guild has a second one. A sniper with a cloaking device didn't turn on her cloak until after she'd revealed her location and missed her shot. I doubt computer servers would survive this firefight long enough to copy any data about the Guild's quantum computers from them.
Got it. They have a secondary quantum computing lab in Tokyo, a Guild facility called the Forge.
The Guild is an official business as far as I can tell. This quantum computer in Japan would be public information the Guild would have to disclose just to build it. I throw cat toys with more force than that grenade 50-50 just limply tossed at her own feet. Couldn't have done any good other than almost blow her own face off. They develop a plan to reach the computer within their JSOC team in Japan by going through the Guild's Japanese sales executive, Toru Fukusawa, who is hosting a party on an old Call of Duty map tonight. Vermac looks like a Star Wars character that got lost in this game. I want to know why that sniper rifle was reflecting so much light from its scope at night while the team was sitting in darkness on a boat. Instead of taking Toru Fukusawa to an undisclosed location, the Guild killed him. They also could have shut down their quantum computer and several other contingencies as well, since they have insider knowledge of JSOC's plan to access their quantum computer. Great job tossing that gas grenade at some robots. They build them with lungs, right? Oh god, our legs! Why did we try to look cool by vaulting over the boat and falling 3 stories? Real nice security system the Guild built here. They have a shielded AI turret pop up out of the ground, but also 4 large rotating pieces of cover to block its line of sight. Quantum computers are incredibly sensitive instruments. Vibrations and temperature alone can ruin your computing task. Operations on one had to be carefully set up in advance, but this one is as simple as plugging a drive in and it automatically knows exactly what you want to do and can do it while a firefight is raging around it. The game is going to have to work overtime to convince me that Razor is a traitor later when the Guild sent a shielded VTOL to kill him here in Japan. They all would have died had it not been for Vermac bringing an experimental EMP weapon with him on this mission. I can't claim with any certainty that this is AI art, but since AI art is in the multiplayer, and this single player is just a disguised multiplayer mode, I have a strong hunch that it is, and I was ready to go hard on Activision for it, but then I realized I couldn't tell if every part of this game was made with AI, from the writing to the characters. Call of Duty may be the first example of a game where we have to analyze every aspect just to figure out which parts a human was involved in creating, which to me disqualifies the entire thing. Can someone turn off the hologram filter that adds all the unnecessary digital effects into the feed? We can accept clean picture resolution in the future. We have that now.
David, if we're compromised, we have to lock this shit down. You trust your team, I trust mine, but it can't be absolute.
I get trying to throw mistrust into a story where nothing is what it seems, but these teams are literally linked up in their own heads and experience each other's viewpoint. If one of them were a traitor, it would be hard to hide that from the others. The team's VTOL comes under attack by guild drones, but shoots them down with its back guns? I don't know. Why was the team even in a VTOL to begin with? They're back on the ground in Avalon after this. Instead of waiting around for the quantum computer report, why didn't they take this time to get checked out for the chemical weapon they're under the effects of? Or at least pick up a few gas masks?
The surviving drone's cache should contain routing logs and mission orders.
And possibly the identity of our mole.
They have to get their hands on the remaining drone that attacked their VTOL to figure out who the mole is. It never actually leads to that, and the mole just reveals himself later. The guild treat this one anti-aircraft launcher like it's the most important thing in their arsenal and send in everything they have to stop the team from taking control of it to shoot down an inconsequential drone. Maybe they just really want to be in a better Black Ops game, and that's why they keep hallucinating levels from the old glory days.
All I can think about was saving my own skin.
I remember that day too. There's no time to dwell on it. We're still on mission.
No time to dwell on your trauma. Disregard earlier today when I pulled rank and ordered you to help me deal with my trauma. Luckily, the drone is inside their shared hallucination of LA, so they can track it despite all the levitating highways. The hallucination is making their objectives harder now, because they believe there's a computer terminal next to the crashed drone that has to be hacked while they defend the zone.
Got the data.
Couldn't have done it without you.
You probably could have, actually. It would have been easier without him reliving Black Ops 2. Cradle acts up again, this time on 50-50. Being the brand new character, she doesn't have a legacy level to draw upon, so she just relives some time in Japan where she almost died to some robots. 50-50's trauma level doesn't amount to much. It just leads directly into Harper's memories on the assault on the USS Obama, where he starts freaking out over Javier Salazar, a traitor who sided with Menendez, which causes Harper to lose it and transform into a giant monster and attack the team. It makes perfect sense, really. It's quite the metaphor. How come the C-Link isn't doing its plot magic right now and keeping their perspective shared? So far, they've never seen each other as monsters when under Cradle influence. I'm curious what shooting at Harper here means for him in reality, since I assume they light his ass up. I also wonder what happens if you're playing Harper in the co-op mode during this. What are you doing while your companions fight you? I'm assuming you're just there shooting at your giant self alongside them while choking your immersion to death. Take cover! The hallucination of our gigantic friend is about to fall on us. How did the rest of your flesh and blood body block all that debris? Your arm and leg only took half of it. And with that over, Harper jokes about what a waste of time it was. Got over his paranoia like it was nothing too.
Section. It's a Razor. He's been feeding intel to the guild.
Razor was the mole. I don't know how we figured that out. He just sort of is now because that's the only way COD knows how to establish drama. It makes you question why he would attack the guild in Japan and help JSOC use the quantum computer though. That would have been the perfect time to reveal he was a traitor, by killing his team and foiling their attempts to decrypt the information. Instead he's flying to Japan to confront Mason and his team by himself.
The decryption key from Razor wasn't what it seemed. It triggered a wipe of the hard drive.
Tell me you're kidding.
Wish I was. But I did manage to transfer a fragment before it all went up in smoke.
The quantum encryption key Razor provided actually wiped the hard drive, but Karma was able to transfer a fragment before that happened, and that fragment just happened to be the most vital part of the data they needed. The thing is, that data should have still been encrypted, which means Razor did send the encryption key, but paired it with a virus to wipe it. The data leads him to Faulkner, the guild's bioweapons specialist. He had a Zoom call ready to go on his computer in a secret lab hidden beneath his bookshelf, meaning he knew they were coming even though Razor can no longer tip the guild off about JSOC's plans. To save yourself, you have to remain close to the C-Link disruptor while Karma hacks it. I'm pretty sure we could just shoot the damn thing and that would do the trick of stopping it, but the game wants you to stand your ground for the 1,000th time and defend this damn zone.
Wait, please, Kagan. She told me. Told you to what? To find out why the Cradle hasn't killed you.
Little did she know they were just too traumatized to die, which I have to hand it to COD, that's a plot only it could do. So did they kill Faulkner after learning about the Sanctum and where it's located? They just sort of flew away and left a bioterrorist there if not. Kagan uses a deep fake of Mason's dead father telling him how hopeless his struggle is while messing with the implant frequency, which sends him into a hallucination of a prison where his father is the warden. She could also have a few soldiers come in and shoot all of them while they're on the ground, but I guess she really trusted Cradle to finish them off even though it's failed to do that previously.
Go back to your cell. No one escapes Vorkuta.
This dream world is the prison of Vorkuta, making this the third time Call of Duty has used that level. The second time was in the previous Black Ops game. Give it a rest. It ain't that great.
If there's any part of you that is my father, you'd be fighting back. You want to be him? Prove it. Try it. Be the man I remember. Don't let her make you a puppet.
We're going to convince our hallucinated prison daddy to act like our real father would by strapping him down and making him relive childhood memories like teaching his son to fish, handle a gun, and climb a tree. Figures that a Call of Duty father never bought his kid some video games to bond over. Mason, a nearly 60-year-old man, has to protect his precious childhood memories by holding off waves of zombies and monster spiders so he can free his dream father, which in turn allows him to return to the dream prison, but with the zombies now on his side.
I know you're not real, but I am. Because I'm part of you.
Call of Duty fans, based on your scale of how gay a game can be, How gay is this?
And I'm proud of the man you become.
Mason just imagined his dad being proud of him. Now the healing can begin. The Guild's plan is to infect every major city with Cradle, driving people into crazed killing sprees and simulating another Menendez worldwide riot, then sell their services and hardware to those nations to make money. In the world of Call of Duty, is it really so hard for a PMC to drum up business that it have to resort to this scheme? There's another world-ending crisis every year they can make money off of. I presume Kagan knows the layout of her own base, but she seems pretty stumped on how the team got out of this room. And if there is another exit, I'm sure she could pursue them down it.
Kagan's already kicking off the European arm of the Cradle attacks. They've got shipments on the dock, loading up trucks as we speak. Get to that dock and stop the Guild from moving out. And Section, millions of people are counting on you.
Couldn't you guys share this information with the US Navy and have them sink or seize any of those shipments leaving Avalon rather than hold on to the intel for personal glory? The plan was to destroy the Cradle shipments at the docks, but Kagan detonates it during the attempt, dosing everyone with a huge amount. Gas masks should have been warned by this point, especially by Kagan's own men, who seem to be immune only when the plot wants them to be.
Sorry, Mason. Playing the good guy only gets you so far.
Razor's double cross has about as much justification as a kid switching teams in gym class. It's consequential too. That's a war crime. Razor was down and could no longer defend himself.
You thinking what I'm thinking?
We bring the house down.
The bioreactor might be your best bet.
It's an underwater base. Maybe just have a Navy ship fire some torpedoes or depth charges at it, or an underwater demolitions team. This should be easy to take out. Make a hole and the ocean will do the rest.
Hey, I got an idea. We're at the bottom of the fucking ocean.
We'll worry about the details later.
That's a detail you have to worry about before you begin your plan to scuttle an underwater base, unless your plan is a suicide run. Why even have two giant mechs guarding the door to the bioreactor if they aren't switched on to prevent anyone from reaching it? In fact, the team take control of them and blast their way in.
Huh. The bioreactor's entering its hydrothermal containment phase.
Jesus, in English.
What's the most cliche line we could write for this scene? How about the one where the simple-minded guy asks the smart girl to explain tech jargon in English? What do you think we hired Michael Rooker for? There are some mission objectives where it's clear half the team was supposed to be covering the other half, like this one where you crank the bioreactor out of its cooling pool. In solo play, you better deploy mini turrets because it's the only cover fire you get.
Dragging your team down the rabbit hole. You'll lose control. Again.
Teleportation is always used to be a bitch. Now there's 3 mechs in this room when there were only 2 before, and the mechs are real. But we somehow imagine airdrops falling out of the sky that contain the weapons we need to destroy them. You use Hellstorm missiles that are aimed and launched from the sky to destroy them. And we're in an underwater base. Did we just win through the power of imagination? That mech's missile pod wouldn't have triggers for firing its rockets at Kagan. We could also just aim the imaginary Hellfire missiles at her in the control room and accomplish the same thing as using the mechs. And you have to do it 3 times because our glass compartment is rated for blocking only 2 missiles, I guess.
No.
No. Also, Kagan shouldn't have survived that. At the very least, she should be unconscious.
You think you're such a hero. The world's already suffering.
I don't know anything about the state of this world. The game didn't bother to develop that. All I know is that the health bar with your name on it is depleted, and that means the world is safe and righteous again. All 4 of them managed to swim over 100 meters with body armor and weapons weighing them down. They didn't even let go of their guns. 50-50 even did it with a metal arm while carrying Kagan out.
We got the Guild on their heels. I wouldn't mind sticking around Avalon a little bit longer.
All of you are still under the effects of Cradle, which regularly messes with your head. Go get a damn checkup, and probably depressurization as well, since all of you have the bends now after that 100-meter swim straight up to the surface without stopping. The game ends by promising in-game content, then throwing you into the multiplayer without consent. Multiplayer will never be in-game content.
Never thought I'd have to relive 2025.
Thanks for watching. I know you're thinking that this video was supposed to cover Expedition 33. Well, this one is a bonus I put together while working on that much longer video. You can thank all the wonderful patrons on Patreon for funding this and future videos. And be sure to check out my Patreon with a link down below for exclusive classic and DLC Sins videos, like the one on Dreamcast Classic Shenmue that I just released. Special thanks to Victoria, Verdictions, Vanilla Pixel, Brainwayne, Chris, Solomon McGuire, Corey Starks, Roman Are You Sleeping, Nervous Nelly, Xavier Destalis, Notorious SKP, Max Headroom, DJ Nelson, Azenith the Succubus, Musical Pumpkin, Castlemania, Zinro, Michelle C., Dennis O'Brien, Malrose, Donald Talbot, Montezuma, Aaron Hines, Sky is Under, Eric Kisser, Shadow Wolf Gaming, Erpel Jaeger, Church Quiones, S. Venus, Mario Neto, Ben Hottie, Biohazard, and Charmsy.